All right, let's talk Steelers-Ravens. I already made a video on the other side of the ball, so you can check that out if you want. Although you don't have to watch these in order. You can watch them out of order, I suppose, if you'd like to. But yeah, let's talk about Ravens-Steelers. I'm going to first start off with some numbers. We will eventually get into some film, and then I'm going to give my prediction as to who I think will win this game. If you watched my last video, you know I think the Ravens could have a pretty good offensive day in this one, although there is the X factor that the Steelers could even shut them down. So you can check that out if you want more of my thoughts there. But let's talk about the other side of the ball. The kind of struggling as of late Steelers offense going up against a really surging as of late Ravens defense. What's to make of this? Well, first, let's use our friends at PFF to help kind of get an idea of what these two teams are, what the Steelers offense is, and what the Ravens defense is. This is where they rank in specific positional categories according to PFF. You see, passing has been okay, 15th for the Steelers, 19th receiving, and 10th pass blocking. Meanwhile, the Ravens are, a bit of an advantage in the coverage department, actually kind of a significant advantage, 9th best compared to 19th receiving. Pass rush is about even, 19th pass rush, 10th pass blocking, so who knows how that's going to go. Usually in that situation, you get some pressure, but not consistent pressure play in and play out. That's what I would expect. The running game, which the Steelers like to run the ball, even if they're not elite at it, they do like to run the ball a lot. Ravens, they stop the run. PFF is a big fan of their run-stopping abilities, so we'll see how well that goes. Heading over to this chart, this is how each of their receivers play versus man and versus zone. The two stats you see are PFF grades and yards per route ran. You see that George Pickens he's the guy. Obviously, he's someone we're going to talk about. But in terms of man coverage, his yards per route ran is twice as high as the next closest guy. Pat Freiermuth has for a tight end, a pretty good 1.32 yards per route ran. Pickens is just elite at playing against man coverage, over 3 yards per route ran. PFF actually says he wins a little bit more when he's playing against zone, but the yards aren't quite as there in those situations. Obviously, the deep shot to Pickens is a huge part of his game. If you take him out of the equation, if you can get him out of the equation, they don't have a ton else, but they have a lot of guys who just can come through, right? Mike Williams, over a yard per route ran. Calvin Austin, over a yard per route ran. Even Jaylen Warren is over a yard per route ran against man coverage. And against zone, kind of the same thing. Now, Williams and Jefferson aren't great at playing against zone, but you do have Calvin Austin, Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren, and even Najee Harris all are able to be contributors. So for the Steelers, you could argue this is the receiving core made up of George Pickens and a bunch of role players, but the role players can be effective in certain situations. No doubt about it, though. Pickens is the guy. If you look at blitzing numbers, this is just Russell Wilson. This is not factoring in when Fields was out there. Their blitzing numbers, when Wilson is blitzed, pretty good PFF grade, pretty good passer rating. When he's not blitzed, an okay PFF grade and an okay passer rating. Like nothing horrible, nothing dramatic, but definitely he is better when he is blitzed. The Ravens don't blitz a lot. They're 8th least in football. I do think they're going to do a lot of dropping back, playing coverage, trusting that they can win with 4, and trusting that they can cover down the field. We'll see how well it works. There will be some blitzes, but I don't expect a ton in this game. Let's look at some numbers from the last 2 times these two teams played. This was their Week 11 matchup when the Steelers won. You see the overall passing wasn't huge, but definitely Pickens was a huge part of it. 89 of the 205 passing yards. Russell Wilson, no touchdowns and an interception, and also not great yards per attempt. 205 yards, but on 36 attempts. So much of it was Pickens. Pickens was really good. I mean, you see down the list, the next receiver, there's not even a receiver on the list. I think a couple other guys had 1 catch that I didn't put on the list, but the only receiver to have multiple catches was Pickens. Now Washington, Pat Freiermuth, both the running backs were able to contribute, but still, definitely you want to get more of the receivers involved, you would think. The second time Pickens wasn't out there, he didn't play the second time these two teams played, but they were able to get more contributions from other receivers. Calvin Austin had a big catch that we'll actually talk about later on in this video. You see Wilson, his yards per attempt was actually a little better in this game, despite no Pickens. They didn't really have the big plays, but again, Jalen Warren had some catches, Van Jefferson, even Ben Skowronek was able to have a couple in this one. So that's what happened the last time these two teams played. As for the running game, this is the Week 11 matchup. You see 63 yards on 18 carries. Nothing great. Jalen Warren had a little bit more success, but, kind of a whatever offensive rushing day, even though they did have over 100 yards. Part of that was they were running out the clock at the end, so that was a factor. And Justin Fields had a couple rushes in that game to help them run out the clock. The second time was kind of more of the same. Again, this is Week 16, just a few weeks ago. A solid off rushing day, but nothing crazy, nothing that's going to win you the game. You can you can feel comfortable getting a 1st and 10 to a 2nd and 6. It's not like you just can't run the ball at all. And if you are up, you can try and run out the clock like that. That's something you can do. So it's not like they can't rush the ball, but that's probably not going to be where they win this game. It's going to be in the passing attack, I would think. Although there is one other way they could maybe have some success that I haven't really touched on, and that would be on a play like this. It's going to be a 2nd down and 6. You see the Ravens are playing man. The Ravens play both. They play man and they play zone. They mix things up here. They haven't blitzed a ton this year, but this is what they like to do, is they don't like to just do one coverage. But here, Wilson takes the snap, the edge rusher goes for an inside move, and it doesn't work out, so Wilson is able to get outside the pocket, and right here, since this man coverage, he's going to scramble. He'll get some opportunities to do this. I kind of want to see him do this. In both games, he actually he had some attempts to run the football. Neither was outstanding. This was probably his best run of those two games. As you see, it's a very good run. The bad part was that he then fumbled the football. Can't be turning the ball over. That is a factor. Russell Wilson turned the ball over multiple times the second time they played, including a pick 6. That just can't happen if they're going to want to have success. But him using his legs, I think this might be the time to do that, right? I think we'll see probably a lot more of just stuff like this. Simple stuff. Like I said, a lot of 2nd and 6s after 1st down runs for 4 yards. And then, hey, it's zone coverage. You have a route trying to just get into a gap in coverage. As you see, that's what Wilson does. As I kind of mentioned, they have a lot of different guys who can run these routes all right. So even if you don't have someone who's elite at it, you can pick your best matchup, make something work. This is what the Steelers want to do. They want to run long possessions, eat up some clock. That's Steelers football. And it's a strategy that can work. We have seen it work before. Although, of course, being able to win in terms of down-to-field plays is such an important aspect of football. If you can hit on a couple deep shots like this, it can just completely change games. And here, this is the second time they played, so you have no George Pickens. It's Van Jefferson who they're going to look towards. Wilson's going to take the snap. He runs a play action, looks in Van Jefferson's direction, and fires down the field. And you see, is this open? Not really. It's a pure 50-50 ball. Let's make something happen here. And as you see, it's a great throw and a great catch. They do get that big completion. When the Steelers' offense was at its best, they were hitting on 3 or 4 of these a game at least. When it's cooled off, they just haven't been hitting on these as much. And you have to think so much of this game could come down to George Pickens. Like something like this. Here we go. It's Pickens with a one-on-one matchup going into the end zone on a 3rd down and 10. Basically just going to be a jump ball scenario. As you see here, it's actually Tre'Davious White who's going up on Pickens one-on-one, interestingly enough, in this situation. So there's, not a ton of separation. The Ravens need someone who can win here. And as you see, White's able to actually win this matchup. I'm mostly just showing this as an example. I'm not saying Pickens can't win. I'm just saying this is what we're going to see a lot of, is throwing these passes to Pickens. If they can hit on them, this offense could go do a lot more damage than it was able to do really the first 2 times these two teams played. Because despite Pickens' big day the first time these two teams played, he actually didn't have a ton of downfield catches that one either. And if they're going to have better success, they might need that to happen. Because while the Steelers did win the first time these two teams played, they still only scored 18 points in that game. So the offense really hasn't had a great performance either time they have played Baltimore. So what is my predictions for this? Well, here's the final predictions. The Steelers on the year, their offensive points per drive is 1.97. The Ravens have a not ideal defensive points per drive of 2.08, but as I mentioned, has played a lot better as of late. The first time these two teams played, the Steelers had 1.5 yards per play. Second time, 1.55. It's hard to imagine something that different happening, so my guess is going to be right around the same. I think the Steelers will have a 1.5 points per drive. That is my prediction. But predictions are hard, and things can go wrong. How does this go wrong? It is the George Pickens deep shots, right? I don't think Najee Harris is going to go off. I think he's going to probably be pretty similar to what we've seen the first 2 times they've played. I don't know how well the receiving cast can do. I think they'll do okay. They need to hit on some splash plays. They need more Russell Wilson scrambles and more Pickens deep shots. If they can do that, they have a chance to upset the Ravens. I think they have a better chance of having the defense kind of carry today as opposed to the offense. So hopefully if you're a Steelers fan, that you don't need to hit on the deep shots. The defense can keep you in it, and maybe you can just hit on 1 or 2 of those instead of 4 or 5 like they might have to as of right now. So my final score prediction, I gave my points per drive guess. If it's an 11 possession drive, an 11 possession game, then that would mean the Ravens beat the Steelers 29-17. I do think this favors Baltimore in this game, but like I said, this can go the other way. Even though I think the Ravens probably should be favored significantly in this game, I don't think there's like a 0% chance the Steelers can win, even with how bad they've looked the past month. Divisional matchups are weird on top of it, so there's even more craziness going in. But yeah, those are my thoughts. That's my prediction on how this game could go. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.